Street organs in the Netherlands were a very, very common sight. Unfortunately, not anymore. I mean, they still remain a welcome sight, in my opinion. Others seem to hate them, some love them. I like them. I think they give a cozy feeling. But yeah, like I said, not everyone loves them. But where does the tradition of street organs in the Netherlands actually come from? So the Dutch street organ culture actually peaked between the 1920s and 1940s. And it is still around, like I said, it's still part of a culture, and I think it's important to keep it alive. Others prefer, for it to die out, which I think is a bit odd, but Now the roots of street organs actually lay in Italy. The tradition was then further developed in France, Germany, Belgium, and later on in the Netherlands. The small organs in the beginning weren't very profitable. After all, they had to pay for their families because it was their full-time job. But at the same time, because the small organs, the owners of those organs were also the organ players. So they had to pay for their families and they had to pay for the upkeep. And that meant that the quality of the organs and the quality of the music from the organs wasn't great. And it also meant that being an organ player in the Netherlands in the beginning, as a job, it wasn't a well-respected job. Now this all changed when Leon Warnies, a Belgian man, moved to Amsterdam. He started his own barrel organ rental company in 1875. Some suspect that another reason for starting the company was that the Amsterdam Fair was permanently cancelled, and at fairs you used to have a lot of organs, those kind of things, music, And organs at that time, the only way that you were able to hear new music was through organs. You didn't have gramophones, you didn't have radios. Warnies bought good organs in France, Belgium, and Germany, and he started with the small belly organs, which lay on someone's belly, belly organs. And later he brought in cylinder organs. Because of him, street musicians no longer had to travel throughout the country, which they used to do with the belly organs to make as much money as possible. But now they became musicians who actually had their own home. Anyone with a municipal permit assigned to a specific part of the city could rent an organ for a day, a week, a month, whatever you would want. And eventually, besides Warnies, others also started these organ rental companies. And by the 1920s and 1930s, there were around 40 people who rented these street organs in Amsterdam. And at that time, organists went through residential neighborhoods to play the new music, like I said. And people who listened to the organs, they would pay the organist some money, obviously. It was a job, you would pay money. And yeah, it was the only way that you could listen to actual new music. So what was nice about the rental business is that players could rent a good organ at Leon's business, and he took care of the upkeep and the instrument stone. And what was also nice is that whenever those who rented the organs would return the organ nicely, after a while they were able to rent a bigger and more beautiful organ. And throughout this, being an organ player actually went from a, not respected job in society to a very well-respected one. And this also led to an increase of people who wanted to become an organ player in the Netherlands. And only in the Netherlands did the big Pierremont organ flourish, and in other countries the smaller ones were more popular. The Pierremont in the Netherlands especially thrived after the Nazi occupation, was over, after we were liberated. And seeing street organs was very common all throughout the Netherlands. There were many cities and villages. The owner of the organ would place the organ at a suitable location and present his little copper coin tray to the crowd that passed by, and they would give some coins, And there were all sorts of melodies, from musical to classical, and these were mostly French but also German styles of music. At first, after the belly organs, they used the cylinder organs, and later they used so-called book organs, and book organs were great. The name comes from the fact that the cast, or the book, like the organ in itself basically, it had to be doubled in size when the instrument expanded. And they increased in size because music with many notes from people like Richard Wagner had to be played on the instrument. And there were also dance organs found in bars used for dancing, but these organs slowly lost their popularity after the gramophone was used in bars after the Second World War. But until the end of the 19th century, the music of the street organ was programmed by metal parts arranged in a specific pattern within a wooden cylinder, so the cylinder organ. The music you'd hear from these organs in the Netherlands was mostly operetta, waltzes, marches, and every organ had one musical number that everyone loved. So it was not easy to change something up. Once placed on the cylinder, the music would stay for many years, and this changed when the book system for organs was created by the French firm of Gavioli in Paris. Now, instead of costly, heavy and vulnerable wooden cylinders, music was now programmed in a folded cardboard organ book. And this made the book organs bigger and more beautiful, but more importantly, it made it easier for organ owners to get new music instead of being stuck with the same tunes for years, and they could simply buy new books and change them out. Now, at first, these book organs were made for fairs and dancing room owners in France and Belgium, and in 1903, Leon Warnies brought the first book organs for his renters, and very soon a new system became very much popular with the organ players. Very popular, they all wanted it. And other rental companies in cities like Rotterdam and Den Haag soon introduced the book organ too. And the renters were happy and business boomed. And these rental businesses are the reason street organs survived in the Netherlands while they faded elsewhere. In other countries, organs became too expensive for, touring organists. And in contrast, the Netherlands saw a booming street organ culture. And the Big Pyramid became a typical Dutch site. What's also interesting is that many of these organs had nicknames, and sometimes it referred to their size or colors, sometimes to the images that were painted onto the organ. So think of het blauwtje or the little blue one, de witte, the white one, or de grote blauwe, the big blue one, or like I said, some names refer to images that were painted onto the organs, like the Spaanse dame or the Spanish lady, and others refer to the organ shape, such as the grote buik or the big belly. And it didn't just end there, because organists also got nicknames from Lang Jan or Long Jan, to Magere Bertus, Skinny Bert, Skinny Bertus, to Tante Heintje, Aunt Heintje, and Sleebeen or Dragon Leg, and more. So the organ renter usually had two men working for them. They were tasked with collecting money from the crowd. And until 1920, the Netherlands didn't have its own factory for these organs. But that changed when German Carl Frey actually settled in Breda and started one. So after the First World War, the interest in big street organs slowed down in France, Germany and Belgium, thanks to the radio, film and gramophone. Except in the Netherlands. So Carl settled in the Netherlands so he could keep on building organs. And he designed organs with a completely different tonal structure. So he didn't go the French or Belgian way, with organs sort of being orchestra imitations. He went the Baroque German fair organ way. So he knew what sounds worked on the streets and did his magic. So many rental companies from Amsterdam and Rotterdam had their old French and Belgian organs actually rebuilt by Carl Frey in Breda. So his arrangements were richer than many were used to, which was not surprising as he was a talented musician as well. And between 1920 and 1940 he made hundreds of arrangements and wrote almost 200 compositions. And around 1925 jazz became very popular and influenced street organ music. And after that, in the 1930s, the crisis years were there. And the quick spread of the radio and gramophone made things worse for street organs and street organists. The street organ was no longer the only place that they could hear new music, and people had already heard it on the radio or gramophone. And many factories actually had to close during the crisis years, but Frey, he stayed open and continued to work. Things really started to go downhill in 1935 because the municipality of Amsterdam wanted the city to become a wereldstad, as we say in Dutch, or a world city. So what they did was they enforced a policy of extinction. No new street organ permits were given, and in 1937 the entire city center of Amsterdam was forbidden for street organs. This destroyed an entire culture, because in Amsterdam specifically it was a really big deal. And in 1940 the Netherlands was occupied by Nazi Germany. At first the Germans allowed street organs to be played, and later on they forbade it on the 11th of September 1942 to be exact, because they thought it was begging. And at the time most organ renters sold their organs to people who still believed in a good ending. Now after the Second World War there were only a few organ rental companies in the Netherlands left, but not many people were interested. And besides that, there were loads of jobs with better pay, with better social security, those kind of things. And also, many people weren't at home during the day anymore. So normally, if you would rent the organ and you would play, you would go from neighborhood to neighborhood, door to door, you would play with your organ and people would come out of the house, they would listen to the music and they would pay you some. But they weren't at home, they were at their jobs. So it became harder and harder for the organists to make a living. So the number of professional street organ players quickly decreased, and many rental companies ended up selling the organs to foreign countries that wanted a piece of the Netherlands. Unfortunately, that also meant that a lot of historical organs left the Netherlands and eventually were demolished in those countries because they didn't know how to care for them. Then it's the 1960s and people have a bit more spare time, which led to an increase in hobby street organists who would play on their free days, mostly on Saturdays. And this slowly brought back the interest and love for the street organs, and in 1997, 150 organs were still often out on the streets. Now for hobbyists, it wasn't done, to make a living. It was just as a hobby, and they would use the money that they would get for the upkeep of the organ. They would often go to smaller towns and cities where the professional players that were left, didn't go to. Now unfortunately, playing street organs in the Netherlands is still not easy nowadays due to bureaucratic hurdles. They're still there. Some are still professional and full-time street organists. So, if you see them, give a little bit of money. That would be great for them. And you can also actually book them for parties, congresses. Nowadays, it's also not that easy for, street organists to play and to make some money or to stand somewhere in a shopping street. Many shops have their own pretty loud sound system, and some are even against the organs. So yeah, I don't think that's helping. And that's also why smaller and softer organs are more in fashion nowadays, and most people who play the street organs today own them and keep them in tip-top shape. Now, today, like I said, some are still professional street organ players and are completely dependent on the income that they can get from the people on the streets and play many days a week. Hobbyists usually only play on Saturdays. Also, fun fact, among the hobbyists, more women are playing nowadays than men. But yeah, I think that the people on the street could make it better by appreciating it and giving something to ensure that this piece of Dutch cultural history, stays alive.